Let's talk about this train carriage, because we've got Katie Hopkins joining us now, I'm delighted to say, on Talk to Me Radio. Female Labour MPs, or some of them, have condemned a close ally of Jeremy Corbyn for suggesting trains could run with women-only carriages to prevent sexual assaults. Chris Williamson, he's the Shadow Fire Minister, wow, said the idea would be worth consulting on after statistics revealed a surge in assaults against female passengers. How about not having Sharia law? How about having lots more coppers? How about making sure when somebody does assault a woman, they go to prison for an awfully long time? Huh? That's another idea, isn't it? Anyway, but the Shadow Minister is now being slammed by MPs Stella Creasy and Jess Phillips, who warned segregation could make the problem worse. He was also accused of taking his policy inspiration from Saudi Arabia, but he insisted in Twitter replies to the MPs he was only interested in offering choice. The point is, of course, Jeremy Corbyn suggested this stupid idea over a year ago. I'm delighted to talk about this story and a few of the other crazy things that are around by Katie Hopkins. Good afternoon, Katie.
Good afternoon in these dark and mad times that we live.
Richard Littlejohn, my old friend, would say you couldn't make it up, and he would be absolutely, yeah, on the money. Come on then, segregated carriages. My wife, who's very liberal, is going absolutely ape about this. She says, I'll tell you what, we'll only go out every third Thursday in the month, if that's all right with Labour. You know, as birds, we'll stay inside, she said. Over to you, Katie.
Well, I think your wife is wise, although she married you, so maybe not. But
be quiet.
But I think you always have to take, so when Liberals start with this sort of stuff, or Labour or lefties or whomever actually, you have to take it to its ultimate conclusion, don't you? So the ultimate conclusion of this argument is precisely that, is that, okay, so the ultimate answer for women then not to be attacked on the streets or in schools or, you know, in their workplace is for them to stay indoors. And then even if they start being attacked in their lounge, just to stay in the kitchen. And so I think you take people to the ultimate endpoint of their argument and ask, does that make sense then? And they'll say, oh, no, it doesn't. But I do think, what does it suggest? If we segregate train carriages, what does it say for women like me that then go and sit in the men's area? Does it mean that I'm easy? Does it mean that I'm well up for it? You know, what does that then say about myself? And when we think about the reality of British trains, no one gets a seat anyway. The idea that you're going to stroll nonchalantly onto a carriage that's somehow going to have space and seats and polite people, we all know that's a complete myth and a fallacy. And I think it's just more of that kind of don't deal with the problem, put a sort of bit of sticking tape on it, the same way that we now have concrete bollards in the middle of all our bridges in London, and the same way that the government announced in the wake of Barcelona they're going to ask Hertz and Avis and other rental companies to, you know, make sure that whoever's hiring the van isn't planning to commit jihad, and would they like insurance for their 72 virgins? You know, that's the British mentality at the moment, and it's bonkers.
It's a wonder they haven't said that the vans involved have suffered from mental illness, which is usually the line they trot out with. So we'll go on to the terrorism thing in a moment. Let's just also now talk about the statue thing that's come over now. Now we should take down Nelson's column. What did you make of that last night?
Yeah, and Mayor Bloomberg is having a discussion paper on whether they should take down Christopher Columbus as well. So it's a really peculiar thing, and I almost feel, having watched some of these protesters and having been amongst them just after Trump's inauguration, I've followed them up through the streets where they set fire to the limousines in DC. And having watched them, you know, you do see that this is just sort of a group of young people who are sort of bored, who lack a common purpose, who lack any real fight in their life. And so the only thing they can fight is themselves or words or now statues. And that becomes their kind of passion, their motivation, and they're excited by the thrill of the fight of the thing. And it's sort of tragic to watch them in many ways. And I think this idea that we're now going to pull down Nelson's column, my question to your listeners would be, what are we going to replace it with if we do pull down Nelson? You know, maybe, I don't know, what, Sadiq Khan? Now, bearing in mind he's a very short man, that pillar needs to be brought down a bit if we're going to get the perspective thing. A bit like Lord Sugar used to have to go 10 steps in front of the camera than everyone else because he's so short. Maybe we'll drop the pillar down and put Sadiq Khan up there. Or, you know, back in Boris's time, we had the blue cock, which I suppose is similar to having Sadiq Khan up there. So, you know, my helpful suggestions for the new pillar.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Meanwhile, We've now got the Libyan Prime Minister effectively saying that people like you and Nigel Farage were correct, that terrorists would be coming into our country and into Western Europe disguised as migrants. Do you feel like saying told you so today?
No, it's that weird thing, isn't it, where having just come back myself from Libya, doing the migrant crossing across the Med, working with the Italian ports to understand the flow of people from Libya, and now having seen Save the Children and others have got their NGO rescue/ferry boat stationed in Malta whilst they wait for the Libyans to stop patrolling their coast. The Save the Children head of press, who I work with, in a sense of work with, as in she hates me, as she's currently in Malta as well, managing the crisis of their own making, which is that they can't go out into the waters while the Libyans are patrolling successfully. But yes, certainly, this is what we've been talking about. I've talked about it since 2014. We knew it was coming. It's come, and it's come in a big way. And I think the fact that we managed to avoid a bigger incident in Barcelona is because the terrorists are such idiots, they blew themselves up with their own gas canisters. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I know that the imam behind that attack was hoping to self-immolate as, kind of part of the exciting demonstrations they were going to have, and I kind of wish that had been allowed to happen, actually. But, it is a farcical situation, and we have left it too late. And as you see, as a result, we still don't address the problem. We try and put, fix-it solutions in place. So we'll expect to see more bollards, more police, and more kind of, hire companies being told not to give out white vans to jihadis.
Yeah, and of course, in Madrid during the trial yesterday, or the beginning of the trial yesterday, they were planning something much bigger. And of course, the concern, therefore, must be there are these sleeper cells, not lone wolves, all over the EU and indeed here in the UK.
I think so, particularly in Paris. So I was there for Macron's big jubilation that he got in. I was there for that, and actually walking around Paris, I've been there a lot, but I noticed a real change. It's one of those changes you can't quite put your finger on, but you can feel the change. That's the same feeling I got in the outskirts of Paris towards the Gare du Nord. You really feel Paris has changed, and I wouldn't mind, betting that Paris will be one of the areas that is next attacked. I think it's a sorry state, isn't it? We have bollards on our bridges, concrete blocks, and Paris now has that great big glass bulletproof ring around the Eiffel Tower, and you see them, don't you? They keep turning the Eiffel Tower lights off as a symbol of respect, whilst all the leaders say, we stand with Barcelona. Macron, we stand with Barcelona. Merkel, Clinton, we stand with Barcelona. I wish, John, while they were all standing there with Barcelona, they actually told us what they were going to do. I think what we all want is some form of action that means we're preventing things happening again, and we just don't get that, do we?
So what is the action that you'd want? So if we suddenly made you Prime Minister,
wouldn't that be a glorious day for Britain? Ofcom would bloody love it.
Yeah. You could actually then go on every radio station and say whatever you wanted. But no, come on, what would you do?
So if I was Prime Minister tomorrow, I would, I would formally end the ferry boats coming across the Med, because I think you have to hit the problem at source. 2, I would get rid of the 23 jihadis on the terror watch list without hesitation, without fail. They would be in large boats moored off in some waters somewhere where they cannot get to us, and if they need to be isolated in that way so they can't then convert anyone else whilst in prison, fantastic, and so be it. I would shut down any of the extreme mosques or mosques with particular teachings that are going on, and I would round up some of the imams and get them to call whether they are with this country, whether they support our country and the people in it, or whether they're against us. And if you're against this country, or if you're against the people in it, then you go. You do not have British nationality anymore, and we don't want you here. And I think we need those kind of drastic measures because we are in drastic times. And I spent yesterday actually offline with my 8-year-old son because of that 7-year-old boy that died. We keep not talking about the victims. Western Europe, our victims don't seem to matter as much. We saw that picture of Alan Kurdi, and boy, did we see that picture a lot. It strikes me that the victims that are like our own sons, my son, my 8-year-old, those are the ones that are lying in the street, unidentified split from his mother, killed under the truck. And we don't talk enough about those children. Safi Rose, we don't talk enough about the victims that we've seen. And I think that's why we need to say, yes, drastic measures are required.
But Katie Hopkins, you forgot the most important thing, which of course Theresa May talked about in her speech after Barcelona. We need to clamp down on people with hate speech on the internet.
Golly
we need to get Twitter. Yeah, we mustn't have people with any views, especially if they're of the right. What do you think?
Well, indeed. And seeing this last CPS ruling, which we've all been pushing and tweeting out
Alison
about.
Saunders, who couldn't even get Jana before the courts. Go on.
Could you even imagine that woman and her perceived, if you perceive that you are black, or you perceive that you might be lesbian, or if you perceive that once you might have been a trans pescatarian and someone was rude about the fish you were about to eat, then boy oh boy, you want to get running to Alison with your arms up saying, I perceive that my rights have been violated, and get someone like me locked up. I do plan to write my next book from prison. I have gauged interest in that, and I do plan to spend a considerable amount of time there in the next coming years, because I don't plan on shutting up, and it's going to take a bigger woman than Alison, not in the physical sense, because clearly she's quite a large lady, but it's going to take a bigger woman than Alison to shut someone like me up. And frankly, she can take her last warning from the CPS and she can do what she will with it, but it isn't going to affect the way that I speak.
Are you missing being on the radio?
No, it doesn't show, does it? I'm fine with it. I'm fine. I'm over it. I'm glad they've replaced me with a small jumper-wearing child. That's very good news.
I thought that was funny as well. Katie, a delight having you on the show. Thank you very much indeed.